Welcome to the deep dive. It's really fantastic to have you with us today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
I want you to picture something with me for a second. Imagine we are standing right in the middle of a war room.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Yeah, we're in front of this massive, pristine whiteboard at Westlakes. You've got a handful of magnets in your hand, and you're ready to map out an absolute masterclass in elite sports strategy.
The fun stuff.
Exactly. Because today we are sinking our teeth into a really fascinating document. It's called Adelaide Crows 2026, The Strategic Roster Blueprint.
Right.
Our mission in this deep dive is to completely unpack how this specific Best 23 roster is meticulously designed because, we all saw the ironclad defensive pressure they established back in 2025.
Oh, it was phenomenal, truly.
Right. But the real puzzle this blueprint tries to solve is how they take that defensive foundation and balance it with dynamic, lethal offensive threats for 2026.
Yeah.
It's a massive tactical shift, and I'm really eager to see how the pieces fit together.
It really is the ultimate chess match. When we look at this blueprint, it becomes immediately apparent that a modern roster isn't just a list of names.
Right.
It's a living, breathing, interconnected system. What's fascinating here is how this specific blueprint aims to do two seemingly contradictory things at once.
How so?
Well, it's engineered to absorb immense forward half pressure from the opposition, essentially acting as an anvil.
An anvil, I like that.
Yeah, while simultaneously packing the sheer firepower required to completely dominate the transition game and the scoreboard.
So it's about balance.
Exactly. It's all about the spatial dynamics and how these specific profiles interact across the grass.
Right, and to understand how they plan to, actually pull that off, we need to start where the foundation is laid.
The backline.
You got it. Let's take our first few magnets and place them in the deepest part of the defensive zone, the defensive wall. Right down there at the fullback post, we have Nick Murray wearing number 09.
Yep, the anchor.
The blueprint puts him right there for one very specific reason, right? He is the ultimate anchor against the opposition's primary key forward.
He is.
But he isn't operating on an island. Flanking him on either side, we have Max Michalanney in number 16 and Josh Worrell in number 24.
And that trio right there is the absolute bedrock of this entire 2026 strategy.
Yeah.
Definitely. When you combine Murray at 09, Michalanney at 16, and Worrell at 24, you are blending two essential defensive philosophies that usually they don't coexist perfectly.
Because they clash.
Right. With Murray, you have that pure Thunkel shutdown capability. But then, crucially, the blueprint highlights Michalanney and Worrell for their elite intercept marking. And we know that in the modern game, an intercept mark is the single most destructive weapon against a set zone defense.
But wait, I have to push back a little here. Committing so heavily to an intercept game leaves you incredibly vulnerable, doesn't it?
It can.
Like, if Michalanney or Worrell leave their direct matchup to fly for the ball and they only manage a spoil or worse, they completely miss it. The ball hits the deck.
And then the opposition's small forwards are off to the races.
Exactly. So how does this blueprint account for that inherent risk?
That is the exact risk every defensive coach loses sleep over, believe me. But that's where the systemic design comes into play. Michalanney and Worrell aren't just flying blind.
Okay.
They're operating within a highly structured team defense that dictates when they have the green light to peel off.
So it's calculated.
Very. Furthermore, if the ball does hit the ground, the blueprint relies on the immediate collapse of the half-back line to sweep up the crumbs. They are backing their spatial awareness and their system to mitigate that ground ball risk.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if they do secure that intercept mark, taking clean possession is really only step one.
Right, the hard part is what comes next.
Now they have to move it before the opposition zone resets. So let's slide our focus slightly forward on the whiteboard to the halfback line. This is where the transition truly begins.
The launch pad.
Exactly. We have to introduce the general of this operation, Rory Laird, wearing number 29.
The perfect guy for the job.
The blueprint specifically points out his role in controlling the corridor. Now, everyone knows the corridor is prime real estate, but what is it about Laird's specific metric profile that makes him the perfect player to break those modern zones from that position?
It comes down to elite decision-making under high cognitive load.
Interesting phrase. Break that down for me.
Well, modern AFL defenses are specifically engineered to choke that central corridor. They set traps. They actually invite you to kick it up the middle so they can turn it over.
Right. It looks open, but it's a mirage.
Exactly. By placing a player with Laird's composure right there at halfback, The Crows are setting up a traffic controller who rarely falls for those traps.
So he sees the game differently.
His disposal efficiency and peripheral vision allow him to dissect a zone rather than just bombing it long. But Laird doesn't operate in a vacuum. To effectively use that corridor, you need aggressive, line-breaking movement around him.
Which brings us to his support cast. The blueprint maps out Mitchell Hinge number 20 and Wayne Milera in number 30.
Precisely. The document specifically highlights their rebounding run and composed distribution.
How does that geometry work with Laird?
Think of it this way. Laird is the pivot point in the center, ensuring the defensive structure holds its shape. When the ball is turned over from one of those intercept marks, Hinge and Milera provide the immediate explosive lateral run out of the defensive 50.
So they're breaking the lines.
They break the first line of the opposition's press before it even has time to set. Their composed distribution means they are surgically delivering the ball into the midfield.
Wow.
Yeah, turning a defensive absorption into a terrifying offensive thrust in a matter of 3 seconds.
It's all about the speed of transition. And that brings us perfectly to the next critical zone on our whiteboard, the engine room.
The midfield.
The midfield. This is where the game turns into an absolute trench war. Let's drop our magnets right in the center square. Leading the charge from the dead center is the powerhouse captain himself, Jordan Dawson, wearing number 12.
You absolutely need your alpha leading from the middle, setting the physical tone.
But as we know, a midfield that only operates inside the center circle gets swallowed whole by modern stoppage structures. Rather.
Exactly. If you play entirely inside, you play right into the hands of the opposition's congestion. You have to force the opposing midfield to defend the entire width of the grass.
Here's where it gets really interesting, I think.
Right.
Because when we look at the wings on this whiteboard, we have a fascinating contrast in weapons.
We do.
On one side, we have the blistering speed of Chase Jones in number 01. On the exact opposite side, we have the strategic, almost surgical positioning of the new recruit, Isaac Cumming, wearing number 44.
It is such an intriguing pairing.
It really is. You've got pure afterburners on one flank and high IQ tactical positioning on the other. How does that play out?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the strategy behind this asymmetric wing pairing is incredibly clever. Opposing teams want to force the ball to the boundary line and lock it down.
Standard defensive play.
Right. How do you beat that? You stretch the defense laterally, but you do it with different threats. Jones's raw speed demands the opposition's direct attention. They physically have to shift a defensive sweeper over to his side to respect his overlap run.
Because if they don't, Jones just burns them down the boundary line and delivers it inside 50 under zero pressure.
Exactly. And while the defense is tilting toward Jones to put out that fire, Isaac Cumming is on the weak side.
Oh, waiting in the wings. Literally.
Literally. Using his elite positioning to drift into the massive pockets of space that have just opened up in the middle of the ground. Cummings' positioning ensures that Dawson always has a safe outlet pass. It creates this horizontal tension that stretches the opposition's defensive web until it inevitably snaps.
It is like watching a rubber band stretch further and further. But to utilize that width, to let Cumming and Jones do their damage on the outside, you actually have to win the contested ball first.
Which is never easy.
Not at all. And that brings us to the stoppage specialists. The blueprint drops a massive magnet right on the ball with Riley O'Brien, number 43.
The big man.
We are talking about the league's number 2 hit-out specialist here. Having a dominant ruckman is great, but how does his specific tap work fundamentally change the mechanics of this midfield group?
It changes the entire mathematical probability of a clearance. Having O'Brien at 43 means you aren't just getting first hands on the ball, you're getting hitouts to advantage.
That's a huge distinction.
There is a massive statistical difference between a ruckman who just taps the ball to a neutral space and one who palms it directly down the throat of a moving midfielder.
Right, because one keeps it 50-50, the other launches an attack.
Exactly. In a game built on momentum, that initial split-second advantage at a stoppage is invaluable. O'Brien acts as the primary distributor at the source, neutralizing the opposition ruck while feeding his specific weapons.
And the blueprint is very clear about who those primary weapons are for 2026. He is feeding the ball to the incredibly dynamic Isaac Rankine in number 23 and the hard-nosed Jake Salego in number 14.
This is where the biomechanical synergy of the roster really shines.
Paint that picture for us.
You have O'Brien tapping it down to this perfectly balanced duo. Rankine at 23 brings this explosive, unpredictable flair. His lateral movement and acceleration mean he can break away from a congested stoppage with a single sidestep.
He's gone before they even blink.
Once he breaks that initial tackle, the structural integrity of the opposition's midfield completely collapses.
But to let Rankine dance on the outside like that, you need someone willing to do the dirty work on the inside, right?
And that is Jake Salego, number 14. The blueprint praises his hard-nosed approach for a reason. Salego provides the core strength and the grit at ground level.
So he's the battering ram.
He is the one winning the tough, contested ball, absorbing the heavy physical contact, and feeding the ball out by hand. He takes the hit so players like Rankine and Dawson have the time and space to operate.
That balance again.
The contrast between Rankine's dynamic burst and Saligo's relentless inside grit creates a multi-layered problem for any stoppage coach.
I love how this tactical map is taking shape on our whiteboard here. We've absorbed the forward half pressure in the backline, we've broken the zone with transition speed, we've won the contested ball in the middle, and we've stretched the field laterally.
Time to score.
Exactly. Now, we push our magnets aggressively into the offensive zone, the scoring arc. And reading this section of the blueprint was a real eye-opener for me.
Oh, it's intense.
Looking at the half-forward line, the document notes that their defensive work rate is simply unmatched. We are putting down Ben Keys, number 02, and Alex Neal-Bullen, number 28, to provide elite pressure and link-up play. Then right alongside them, we have Darcy Fogarty, number 32, acting as the primary marking target.
This specific setup perfectly illustrates the radical evolution of the modern half-forward role.
It really does. It's a total shift in mindset. The dual role of the modern forward line is brutal. You look at this blueprint, and it specifically demands elite pressure from its forwards before it even mentions kicking goals.
That's right.
They are basically treating the half-forward line as the first line of defense.
It is a profound philosophical shift. 10 years ago, forwards were judged almost entirely on their scoreboard impact. But this 2026 blueprint acknowledges that the most dangerous turnovers happen in your forward 50.
So Keys and Neal-Bullen are basically defenders in the forward line.
Keys at 02 and Neal-Bullen at 28 are tasked with a relentless running capacity. If the Crows don't have the ball, those two are hunting the opposition's rebounding defenders. They are tackling, harassing, and forcing panic kicks.
They don't let up.
They are the ones creating the forward half turnovers that modern AFL teams thrive on. It is an incredibly demanding role, both physically and mentally.
And while Keys and Neal-Bullen are creating absolute chaos at ground level, you have Fogarty, number 32, as the big-bodied marking target to straighten up the attack when they do force that turnover.
You need that focal point.
But the tactical layers don't stop there. We still have to look deep in the forward pocket. These are the heavy hitters.
Here we go.
The blueprint deploys the creative genius of Josh Worrell in number 08, the immense high-flying potential of Riley Thilthorpe in number 07, and, of course, the legendary Taylor Walker holding down full forward in number 13.
When you look at that specific spatial combination, Worrell at 08, Thilthorpe at 07, and Walker at 13, you are looking at a multi-dimensional nightmare that forces opposition coaches to make impossible compromises.
I can totally see that on paper, but walk me through the reality of defending it for a second. If you're an opposition backline coach, how do you even structure your matchups against that trio? Because it seems like if you fix one problem, you just expose yourself to another.
That is exactly the genius of it. You have to start with the legendary experience and sheer gravity of Taylor Walker.
Number 13.
Even at this stage in his career, his goal-kicking accuracy and football IQ command the opposition's absolute best key defender, and often a secondary dropping defender too.
He has a gravitational pull.
Perfect way to put it. Because he draws that double team, you suddenly have Riley Thilthorpe isolated in a one-on-one matchup. Thilthorpe brings an immense aerial threat. If the ball goes up high to the weak side, his biomechanical advantage in the air is nearly impossible to defend one-on-one.
Right, and if by some miracle the defender manages to bring that ball to ground against Thilthorpe, you have Worrell circling like a shark.
Precisely. Lingering right there at their feet or darting into the open space created by Walker's leads, you have Josh Worrell. His creative genius means he can crumb the ball at full speed, score from impossible angles, or deliver a killer pass with a single touch.
Wow.
It executes the sheer firepower promised in the blueprint by ensuring there is no safe place for the defense to clear the ball.
It's an offensive setup designed to completely overwhelm every defensive mechanism. So we have the starting 18 locked in on our whiteboard.
Looks like a formidable side.
It does. But anyone who watches a full season of footy knows that a game isn't won by just 18 players. You have to look the sideline, the interchange, the bench.
Don't ignore the bench.
The blueprint lists a very specific group here. Sam Barry in number 03, Calamachi in number 04, Sid Draper in number 05, Lude Pedler in number 10, and James Peatling in number 25.
I would argue that this is perhaps the most crucial tactical element of the entire blueprint. Everything we just talked about falls apart without this specific group.
So what does this all mean? Why does the blueprint highlight the bench so extensively, detailing these versatile rotations? I mean, in older eras, the bench was just a waiting room for injured or resting players. Why is this group treated as a core structural component?
Because of one phrase that is repeated throughout the document: high-intensity pressure.
There's that phrase again.
The Crows' entire brand of football, this whole 18-man press we've been discussing, requires a physiological output that no human being can sustain for 120 minutes.
You just burn out.
Completely. The relentless chasing by Keys and Neil Bullen, the crashing of Saligo in the midfield, the explosive rebounding from Hinge, it completely drains the tank. Your VO2 max drops, your decision-making gets sloppy, and suddenly that ironclad defensive wall has holes in it.
The system breaks down because the legs give out?
Exactly. Therefore, a loaded bench with versatile rotations isn't a backup plan. It is a core tactical weapon used to weaponize freshness.
Weaponize freshness. I love that.
Players like Barry, Achi, Draper, Pedler, and Peatling are the engine of intensity. They aren't just coming on to rest the stars. They are coming on to sustain the system's structural integrity. By systematically and continuously rotating these fresh legs onto the field, the Crows ensure that their baseline pressure metric never dips below the red zone. They overwhelm the opposition not just with talent, but with relentless, rolling waves of physical exertion from the first siren to the very last.
It's brilliant. The bench is effectively the fuel pump for the entire machine. So let's pull back and recap our journey across the whiteboard for you.
Let's do it.
We've seen how this 2026 blueprint meticulously layers a system designed for ultimate balance and sustained pressure. Down back, you have a physically imposing defense that actively hunts intercept marks to trigger lightning-fast counterattacks.
Right.
In the middle, you have a dynamic, perfectly balanced midfield that stretches the ground laterally and leverages elite tap work to feed a gritty, explosive engine room.
Spot on.
Up front, you have a forward line that acts as the tip of the defensive spear, applying suffocating pressure while boasting a multi-dimensional scoring threat. And fueling the entire operation is an interchange bench utilized as a tactical weapon to maintain overwhelming intensity.
That's the blueprint in a nutshell.
They're clearly taking the defensive foundation of 2025 and sharpening it into a lethal transition game for 2026.
It is a phenomenal structure when you map it out like this.
Yeah.
But as we know, football isn't played in a vacuum on a pristine whiteboard.
No, it is not.
This raises an important question for you to mull over. We've established that this entire 2026 blueprint relies completely on high-intensity pressure and versatile rotations to maintain its shape.
Right.
The system essentially demands peak physical exertion just to function. So what happens to the structural integrity of this finely tuned, interconnected web if deep fatigue sets in during a grueling, bruising finals campaign?
Oh, that's a scary thought.
Can the elite strategic positioning of an Isaac Cumming or the composed distribution of a Wayne Milera truly compensate if the sheer physical work rate of those rotating bench players ever dips by even 5%?
Just a slight drop.
Because if the pressure drops, the whole system is suddenly exposed. It's the ultimate stress test for this blueprint.
Wow, that is a fantastic point to end on. It's the classic battle between perfect structure and human limitation. If the engine loses its steam, does the whole tactical machine seize up?
We'll have to see.
It is definitely something to keep eye on as we watch this roster transition from the war room to the actual grass. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you enjoyed mapping out the mechanics with us today. Keep questioning the tactics, keep exploring the fascinating world of sports strategy, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.